Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Backyard Gardens podcast. I wish I could wave a wand and tell you exactly how much you should grow in your garden. I absolutely wish I could, but I can't. But what we can do is we can listen to this episode and we're going to help you figure out how much to grow in your garden and how to come about that number. It's a method that I developed that is a little bit skeptical, but it seems to be working out over time, and we're going to continue to use it. So definitely want to check that out, and all the different reasons to listen, or excuse me, not listen, but really plan your garden out and the amount that you plant. So it really helps you to dwindle down the numbers and really get in there and get it right. And if you'd like to support the show, you could do so by becoming a subscriber or a patron and buy some seeds from us. Use the code YBBBB and get yourself a discount. Free shipping, $35 or more. And we try to pack a lot of seeds in there, so definitely want to check that out. We have direct sowable seeds, all kinds of seeds for you for all seasons, so come check us out. The link is below for that, and we have an Amazon page with all of the links that we do, all the products that we use in our gardens. They're true, tried, and tested, and this is exactly what we use in our garden, so come check that out. It just helps us out a little bit, no extra cost to you. Does it get any better than that? But thank you so much for being a listener to the Backyard Gardens podcast, and we look forward to talking to you real soon.
To have a good harvest, one must plant good seeds and must also use the right kind of fertilizer. The carrots have grown large and firm. How good they will taste.
So, Batavia, I know that you have an issue with this, and it's kind of a loaded question, but when you're getting ready to start planting for the year, do you often wonder to yourself, like, how much should I be growing of a certain plant or something like that? How much of a vegetable should I be growing?
I do, but I hope that it was just a bad connection, because you said, I know you have an issue with, and it was like a pause. And it's like, wait, I know you have issues. Yeah. I do, but I'm kind of letting go and letting God this year. But yeah, I have had and continue to have issues with that. Yeah.
Well, if you have to excuse me, Shari Dog is on the mend. She had a case of gastritis, and she's now back to normal, and she's barking at everybody. So welcome back, Shari Dog. But I think for me, it's come down to like different levels within my gardening experience, and based off of what we do with the produce and stuff like that. And I don't want to sound like a broken record, and it's very early in the episode to be saying this, but depending on how you use the produce. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And having skin in the game and knowing how much a certain plant will produce really helps us to decide what we're growing. How much of something to grow.
Yeah, I can't, and this is not in any particular order, but I can't express enough how important it is, how helpful it is to me. Let me speak for myself, to have pictures and videos, even short videos of things in my garden. If you're the kind of person that takes copious notes, then this is, it doesn't matter if you're taking pictures or not. But yeah. I'm not, I got like a dozen notebooks that have empty pages. It's really helpful for me as I continue to grow things for the first time to understand when they produce and how much they're producing in my garden. And then I think not necessarily just a comment, I'll say. We kind of talk about how much to grow, and it's under the assumption that whatever the things are, they're all going to do well.
Yeah. Yeah, you always walk into the season like, this is it. This is the year. No issues. And that doesn't work out.
Yeah, well, I never walk into the season like that. But I walk into the season with, I'm going to plant X to get X. And it leaves no room for the error. And, we were just talking about it. I said I started 12 jalapeno plants. And a couple of years ago, I was starting that many just in case they didn't make it to outside, right? And 12 jalapeno plants, I'm confident that probably all 12 of them are going to be transplantable, but I don't know how many peppers they're going to produce, however many I plant.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to plant all 12. At least I don't think I am. And so like you have to kind of then do the math of how many are you expecting, then based on how many you're expecting, you want, how many should you plant, and then are you planting with some room for error? Like it's this whole thing. That's just one vegetable.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, and you're talking to, I mean, I would assume that we're talking to people with limited garden space. So, we got to take all that into account.
Yeah.
And
it's huge. Hold on.
Yeah. I mean, you and I have on the larger side of gardens, but we're still limited in what we can grow. It's not like we have an acre and you're like, all right, I got to try and fill this acre up. God, if I could fill an acre up, I'd be good to go. But, it's the same thing. Now, I will say for me, one thing that's definitely helped is like growing the same varieties year after year for a while. Like I learn what each variety will produce. And that's really helped us too, because we know roughly what to expect from, I mean, if you want to stay on jalapenos, for instance, like we grow the Craig's Grande jalapeno. So we've been saving the seeds. I think this is the third year we've been saving the seed from it. And we know that we get a larger jalapeno off of it. I know that it's about 100 times hotter than you get at the store, which is something to be said for, excuse me. And I also know like about what time of year they start to produce. So I know what to expect. You know what I mean? And I think, once you start to get that under control, then it really helps. Cause like tomatoes, like cherry tomatoes, you harvest them first. You know, and then you got your determinants, your indeterminants and all that stuff. So it's definitely, there's a trick to it. And I did a video last year on Sandy Bottom Homestead on YouTube where I was talking about, how I decided how many of certain tomato plants to grow. And I did that because I was struggling at the time. And I did it again this year, like finding places for the tomatoes to go into my yard. Because I don't like to eat tomatoes. Shocker. Not fresh. But we can them. And so we need a lot in order to can them and make it worth our while. So that's why we're trying to do these kinds of things and learn about each variety. So like we grow Roma tomatoes pretty much year after year. And we know that they're going to come on hard and heavy. And then they're going to die off. And then we need to start over or do whatever. And we know what we're going to get off of each plant, roughly.
I think that's so I'm going to agree and then use pictures to illustrate that point. So last year I bought seconds after a pretty bad tomato year in my garden, and I think it was like a 25 or 30 pound box. So seconds, I bought them from the farmer's market, and they are tomatoes that aren't beauties. They're not winning the beauty pageant, right? They may be, a distant runner-up. And so there may be blemishes. Like that, yeah. There may be bruises.
Basically every tomato that I grow.
Yeah, right. Generally, I have a garden full of seconds when I do grow tomatoes, and so and they are sold at a lower price than you would buy the pristine tomatoes, right? And so I made a bunch of dishes, like all of my tomato sauce that I froze, I didn't can based on the recipe that I use. And then I did a couple of other dishes with them. It was from that box. So that's super helpful. The idea of I was able to get some things to preserve, even with my tomato year last year, was really important. I don't know how many tomato plants they pull those tomatoes off of. Yeah. But I have a reference from like 2 years ago, which I had a similar box, and it's a guesstimation. I'm saying, okay, I know what I had 2 plants that produced that, right? And so that may be the thing. That may be the magic number. I think 2, maybe 3 Roma-like, paste-like tomato plants could be the magic number for me in my space. But it took me some years to figure that out, right? Yeah. It took me the images. It took me, I may or may not have even kept track of it, because one of the things with picking up the seconds is I get them all at one time. Like, they're in a box, right? And so that's going to be a gauge. And I'm going to put that in the column of, I think I have a good idea for preservation purposes. My salsa preservation is still to be determined because I don't like to use paste tomatoes for the recipe you share with me. But I'm going to put, again, paste tomatoes in the column of, I think I got it figured out. And that's a huge win, right?
Yeah. Now, what we figured out about our paste tomatoes is we need to go higher, more. So this year, at one time, we've got 5 paste tomatoes going at once. But like I said in that video, I've got 1 cherry tomato plant. And I don't need any more than 1 cherry tomato plant. Like, good God, I don't need any. That's the last thing I need is more than 1 cherry tomato plant.
I've been researching growing a half of a cherry tomato plant.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. So, but it's just one of those things where it's like, I know, like when it comes to my tomatoes, I need this many of this many of this, and then anything else I can grow extra, great. I'll use them, whatever with the extra produce, but just to get by on what we need, we know that moving forward, we can do this. And I mean, like the indeterminate tomatoes we're going to grow this year, which may be my last year growing indeterminate tomatoes. Don't know yet. We'll find out this year. This is the year. They're on the chopping block. We can still can those. There's nothing wrong with that. So, we can do that as well, but
it's a different experience canning those. I mean, the idea of a paste is it's meatier, right? And the indeterminates, which are typically not your paste tomatoes, just produce a different type of tomato. But that's what I use for my salsa, an indeterminate tomato.
Yeah, regular,
pineapple.
Yeah. So for me, I'm not a connoisseur in tomatoes, so I can't really tell the difference. You know what I mean? So I'm not really I'm not but we've grown the Romas for so long. They come on so fast and heavy that we enjoy it. And I enjoy growing them. So there is that aspect of it. But, last year, for the past 2 years, I think I've grown 6 to 8 pepper plants. And what I've learned off that is nowhere near enough. Nowhere near enough. So this year we have like 20, maybe 30 tomato or pepper plants spaced around our garden. So, we've figured out like, hey, we need more peppers. We need more tomatoes. So we're able to kind of fit that box as we need it. You know what I mean? But it just takes, it takes time to figure that out, how much each one's going to get you.
Yeah. The amount of things that are swirling in my head when we talk about this kind of thing. And so I said at the onset, like, I normally rely on pictures, but I'm like a half a season away from like needing to break out a book and really document, like fight the freedom of doing what I want when and putting a plant in whenever and yada, yada, yada. It's like creating the greatest heartburn in my garden life.
Yeah.
The wonder of it all. And, you look at it, you say, all right, when is this thing going to produce, especially with expanding to 3-season gardening? Like that information becomes critical for me.
Yeah.
And now I have a pretty good idea of this broccoli that I planted, when it's going to produce. And now I can decide what's going to come next after that. I look at, and the cauliflower is going to, for me, probably be ready after the broccoli, right? So that's absolutely going to impact my garden plan, but specifically how much I want to grow of it. So I'll probably be done eating broccoli by the time my cauliflower is ready. So it's not like I'm kind of balancing both of those vegetables at the same time.
Right.
Let's at least hope that. That's not been my experience the last few years.
Well,
and so
go ahead.
I was just going to say, so now I can say, all right, how much or how little cauliflower do I want to plant? I'm still so Ben is already at fall crops. I'm still like getting spring stuff in. He's well into summer for his garden. So I've
already planted my fall garden.
Yeah, right. We'll be speaking of different vegetables. He's already planted his fall garden of 2024.
No, there's going to be more to come about this on the YouTube and here as well about my plan for fall moving forward. But I'm glad you brought up broccoli. because that's another one where I grew a lot of broccoli and I spaced it out, but I'm hammering down the timing of it because it can be tricky in my area. But what I'm also realized is like, and I knew this with cauliflower as soon as I started growing it, I don't need to grow but maybe 3 plants to fulfill whatever desire I have to cauliflower, because I just don't care for it that much. I have one recipe that I care for, and that's it. So there was never a need for me to grow 10 cauliflower plants. I never really needed to figure that out. I knew I wanted to grow it. I knew I enjoyed it a little bit, but my whole gardening and nutritional experience does not weigh in on the cauliflower. So I knew way ahead of time that was the case. And then the broccoli, like I figured out this spring, like I need to grow about 4 times more broccoli than I normally do. I need to grow really 10 times more, because we eat a lot of it, you know? Yeah. And that's why I've been trying these Brussels sprouts for so many years. You know, it's because we eat a lot of Brussels sprouts. So we want to grow more Brussels sprouts, you know? So, I mean, we grow a lot of like turnips and stuff, but that's just because we can. If we had something else to grow in its space, we would more than likely 100% grow something else and cut down on our turnip harvest dramatically, you know?
You know, I'm surprised that, you know, for your past vegan life, vegetarian, pescatarian combo life, you know, cauliflower is like the new kale. Like every vegan restaurant you go to, vegetarian restaurant you go to, they're going to have some version of cauliflower that you don't necessarily recognize. Everything from like the chicken wings that you create from cauliflower, the cauliflower rice, cauliflower pizza dough. You know,
it all tastes like cauliflower.
I was talking to my uncle about cauliflower, and I don't even know how it came up, but we were talking about cauliflower, and he's like, well, let me know how it does because it's so expensive in the store. And he's so right. Like, we were talking about cauliflower and broccoli, and I'm like, it's like take a mortgage out to buy cauliflower, a head of cauliflower at the store. But that's a good example of the things that factor into how much you're going to grow, right? You know, so Brussels sprouts for me, it's a crop that I've only successfully grown once. And I missed the window for a lot of my Brussels sprouts last year, right? Yeah. You know, and so there is that curiosity. I think one of the things that's really powerful too, when it comes to how much you grow, is starting your own seeds. Right. You know, so you could start seeds, and then since you sell them, you can take out of, you know, if you start, I don't know, 24 of them, a bunch of 6-packs, you could pull out 3 of them and be like, that's all I want to plant.
That's exactly what we do.
Yeah. You could sell the rest. When you're buying them from a store, you're either going to pay up the kazoo for one single plant if you're buying it as a transplant, or even, I mean, otherwise you're buying a 6-pack, you know. So if you're instead starting them from seed on your own, again, you have that control. And it's really, 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 really hard for me. It's hard for me to throw away a lettuce start that I've started. It's hard for me to, you know, pull a volunteer lettuce plant. Like, it's a seed. Yeah. I don't even know what's the monetary value of the one seed that I planted last year to create the head of lettuce that then went to seed and then created 100 different seeds in my garden that flew around. Like, I just can't stop myself. So anyway, lettuce is a good example of, I still haven't in all of these years figured out how much is too much, how much is just the right amount, how much is too little.
Yeah, you know, we grew too much.
I grow too much of it every year.
We grew too much lettuce this year too. A lot of it went to bolt, and we still have a couple heads left that I'm trying to get through so I can plant my sweet potatoes. Mm-hmm. But that's the same thing. It's like, how much of this do we need? Mm-hmm. And it's, you know, it does take some figuring. And so, yeah, I do sell seedlings, not seeds, you know, starter plants. And it's nice because I don't really have to worry about, you know, I'm not really super focused on like, what's your profit margin? Are you at this? And, you know, you should never smoke your own supply. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying, Smokey? So for me, it's like, I can just take whatever I want that I've started and plant it. And it does help. But it's also crippled me in a sense as well, because I don't have to worry about planning a certain amount to plant. I just plant how much I think I'm going to sell. And then I'll do a rough plan and I'll say, okay, well, I need this many extra. And invariably what happens is I'll have some left over and I don't want to throw them out. You know, we don't sell out of everything every year. And so then we start plugging and playing stuff in different areas. And that's why my garden is starting to grow more and more. But it's part of it. You know, I don't mind throwing them away, but at the same time, and that's how we ended up with so many peppers this year, because I had a certain amount planned and I was like, you know what? As I started, I sat back and looked at it. I was like, every year I always wish we grew more peppers. And so it's like, this is the year that we're going to grow more peppers, significantly more, you know, because I'm tired of paying for them at the store, first of all.
Here.
For everything that I have paid for all of my pepper seedlings that I have in dirt, pots, growing them and everything, the cost of those would be like 9 bell peppers at the store. You know, and we have 30 plants in the ground. So if I get 27 bell peppers, we're in the green. You know what I mean?
That's such a cool way of, let me write that down now so I can use that in one of my videos. These 1, 2, 3, 4, skip ahead to 30. It's paid for my garden. You know, yeah. It's interesting because peppers is one of those things because that's one of the things I've been able to start. So, I mean, generally it's not easy, meaning, you know, I've had the last couple of years, aphids indoors, which has just been the biggest pain in my, you know what. But once I get them outside, they have year over year done so well for me. You know, I'm drawn to the thing that does well, right? You know, and so you never see, you know, no one has a cart full of peppers, you know, at the grocery store. So I get the question a lot, like, what do you do with all of those? And again, I come from a long line of folks that freeze things. And even as a prepared dish, if they freeze really well, you know, and so I look at that and say, I could probably almost never have too many. Yeah. You know, but I'm always going to be in a position where I could have more. Last year, I wanted to do more roasted peppers to preserve, and it didn't work out the way I wanted. And that's okay, because, you know, now I know I can increase the number by X. For me, I probably have less space when it comes to something like peppers, because I think the bottom line is, do you have the space to grow how many of X?
Yeah. Well, you got to start prioritizing. And so this year, I'm glad you brought up canning, because we're about to start talking about that now. After I say this, I got 2 things to say first. One is, I hate the question of what are you going to do with all that? And my answer is going to be whatever the hell I want to do with it. So don't ask me what I'm going to do with everything that I grew, because I'm going to eat it. I'm going to preserve it, or I'm going to give it away. But the other thing too is, like, this year we're attempting to grow corn. I forgot to check it this morning. And I'm dedicating an entire bed to the corn, 100%, you know, 32 square feet, hoping to get, I think I planted 40 to 50, corn plants, whatever, waiting for them to germinate. But that eliminated a big space, because I hadn't done that in the past. You know, I did maybe 5 and epic fail. So, you know, this year's hopefully will be a little bit different. But moving into that, you know, you start talking about canning and preserving and freezing. And then you're like, okay, this is where it gets serious, because now you need enough to make it worth your while. You know what I'm saying? Like, there is no point in getting a whole canning setup to can 1 jar of tomatoes. Just go to the store and buy a can of tomatoes, you know? And that's where, like, for us, where I was saying, like, you know, we might not be growing indeterminate tomatoes after this year, because the determinants come on fast and heavy all at once. So we know that we get enough to harvest, and we may not harvest them that day and then can them that day, but we'll harvest them over a week, and then we'll do a big canning day, and then we'll harvest them and we'll do another big canning day. And so that really adds up the numbers of plants that you need to have dramatically, in my mind.
I think a part that I am uber comfortable with, although if there was a fast forward button, I would hit it. every plant, every vegetable, every herb, everything you're putting into your garden doesn't serve the same end purpose, right? You know, so you said you need to grow enough to make it worth your while for a lot of things, but not for everything I grow, right? You know,
Right.
And so I look at like sweet peas, snap peas, or both of those are good examples of that's a little taste is fine.
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't need to grow like a huge amount. And when I say I'm at the very beginnings, I think of trying to figure out.
I'm no tech genius, but I know if I want my business to crush it, I need a website now. Thankfully, Bluehost makes it easy. I customized, optimized, and monetized everything exactly how I wanted with AI. Within minutes, my site was up. I couldn't believe it. Plus, Bluehost keeps me protected 24/7. No more worrying about hackers. I just relax and focus on my customers. So, whatever your hustle may be, secure your online presence in 2025 with Bluehost. Head to Bluehost.com to start now.
What I want to continue to grow and how much of the thing, you know, to make me feel fulfilled in that garden year.
Right.
Right. You know, to make me feel like I can look back and say, this was successful. Right. You know, and so I'd like to be sitting down, shucking a whole bunch of corn, ears of corn. Right. You know, but I'm also okay with that if I get a half a dozen ears. You know, so that's a thing. And you know why? Because I've not yet preserved it. Now, if I find out that preserving my homegrown corn is easier than I think, then watch out. Yeah, watch out, tomatoes.
Exactly. I mean, we're hoping to get 60 ears of corn off of our plants. And so the question, my wife says, she asked me the question, what are you going to do with all that corn? I said, you're going to be eating it, heifer. I mean, what do you want? You know what I mean? Like, you got to eat it. And
Wait, did you say 2 beds of corn or did you do 1 bed of corn?
1 bed. And the
Okay,
variety we're using is known to give you 2 ears per plant. So we're not expecting every plant to give us 2 ears. But if you think about it, you eat some fresh corn, you can some corn, you know, all that stuff. Because then she's like, well, would you sell it? And I'm like, what the hell am I going to do with 60 ears? Who am I going to sell 60 ears of corn to?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That'll be gone in a heartbeat. So it's like, no, I'm just going to can it, freeze it, eat it, and then be done with it. And we'll have corn throughout the year. Now, a lot of people scoffed at me when I said this. What I plan to do is take an ear of corn. You know how you can get the corn nibblers at the store and just cut the ears of corn in 3s and freeze them that way. And then we got corn nibblers, you know what I mean? So where we had 60 ears of corn, now we'll have 180 nibblers if we wanted, you know?
Yeah. Well, putting a ear of corn on the grill, a full ear of corn on the grill says summer.
Yes.
To me, you know, not so much nibblers, but when it's December or January, well, you may still be turning the grill on. I'm not one of those that's, you know, in a sweatshirt, a hat, a coat, and shorts, you know.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Shoveling a space to get to the grill and putting some food on. But anyway, I think that's a great example, though. The nibblers, you can get a small taste of summer. You can put, if you got some type of soup, you can put some ears of corn in that, if that's your thing, if that's what the recipe calls for, or you want to add to it. There are a bunch of different things. And also to note, the quantity you're growing this year doesn't have to be the quantity you grow next year. Yeah,
we'll see. I expect it to continue to be the quantity every year.
Of everything?
No, of the corn.
Okay, no, I meant like for your garden.
Oh, yeah,
not
no,
necessarily
so we change every year, too. And so, I mean, it's like I said one year, I remember I came on here and I was like, I'm tired of eating butternut squash, we're not growing it this year. And then we grew it the next year. And then, we've still got 2 left from last year, so we're not growing it again this year. And, you know, we definitely fluctuate like that. Because, I mean, it's not like we love it. It's not like I'm like, oh, thank God I got butternut squash today. I'm so happy. You know, it's like I can go a while without eating it. And if I want one, I can go to the store and get it. Now, if the day came when the store wasn't there, that's a different story. Papa Bear's garden would look completely different, but that's a different... We'll get into that in another show. Well,
before we skip over that, it's breaking news. No, I fight probably, if I'm in the garden 6 days a week, 4 of those days I fight the, like, deal with what you have. You know, you don't have, 10 acres, deal with this now. This is where you are. Like, I fight that urge. And it's funny because it's the gift and the curse for having the size garden that we have. Like, clearly it's a gift, but the curse is it's not small enough for you to limit yourself just out of necessity, So when I first started gardening, like, I only had 30 feet by 4 feet, period, hard stop. Like, I wasn't then putting food in containers. I was worried about putting my flowers in containers. And so this was the space. There was actually that maybe a couple of years into it, my grandfather was growing collard greens on the side of the garage, which is a whole different conversation. But anyway, so I was limited. So there wasn't like, the world is your oyster, right? Like, I wasn't growing for a quantity of X, Y, and Z. But as soon as you start expanding your garden and you start realizing the possibilities of what you can do, on your balcony, on your back porch, in your front yard, in your backyard, then you start wanting to increase the types of things you're growing. And then, of course, the quantity.
Yeah. For
the first time, probably in many years, as we were talking, I had like this glimpse of 2 crops. Think about how much of any 2 things I could grow if I dedicated my entire garden to just 2 things.
Yeah, exactly. And you'd be good. You know what I mean? You'd be golden.
I don't know that I'd be as satisfied. It's unfortunate because I'll never know. I'll never be able to do that.
I think the key is to like take a step back and look at your diet and look at what you really enjoy and lean into that stuff. And that's where I would start, like with the broccoli and cauliflower. To me, it was a no-brainer. Like, I've always grown way less cauliflower than I have broccoli, always. But once you started canning and freezing and drying and stuff like that, then it kind of took it to another level. You know what I mean? Because then it was like, all right, now we've got to have enough for this, that. And I remember when I first started preserving food, the first time we did it, I got a dehydrator and was going to make apple chips. So we went to an apple orchard and picked apples. And they were like, do you want to pick a basket or a bushel? And I was like, oh, we want 3 bushels. And they're like, what? And I was like, yeah, I mean, if I'm going to spend all this time to dry it, like, I'm going to make it worth my while. And that was like, I had no skin in the game at that point. You know what I mean? I think it was like $60 or something for 3 bushels. And I mean, dude, we were eating apples until the cows came home. Everything we made with it. But that was like our first foray into that. And I really saw, like, first of all, how much you need to preserve it. And then also what your options were, how they opened up when you had more than you knew what to do with. Because we had no anticipation of making applesauce. And we wanted to make a jar of apple butter, and we ended up with 30 jars of apple butter. You know what I mean? So it's like, it kind of led into that. It's like the other day we went to a farm down the road from us and picked strawberries. So we don't grow strawberries anymore. We just go to the U-Pick farm and we pick our strawberries and make our jelly for the year. And we made our 10 cans of jelly, or jam, let's be specific. And, we'll do that for the blueberries. Like, we eat our blueberries fresh, but we'll go pick the blueberries and make cans out of that. But we realize, like, what it takes in order to satisfy your need for that. And it's a lot,
Strawberries, it's such a great example of that. I pulled some strawberries out of the garage at a couple of containers, and I'm like, damn it. I don't know if they're going to make it. These poor little things. My strawberry plants are leggy. How about that? Anyway, how much a plant produces is such an important factor as well. So earlier on, we said, like, we're kind of assuming like everything does well, but then some things do well, but they only produce so much, so right. Strawberries are a really good example of that. And I would have never thought a single strawberry plant produces as little as it does.
Yeah.
I've grown strawberries for probably on and off for like 10 or more years. And there is always that moment of like, wow, this is super sweet. This is what a strawberry is supposed to taste like. And because, strawberries you buy commercially are just so disappointing. So, you juxtapose what you've grown, the 3 strawberries you've grown, to what you buy in the carton and the expense of it. And you're like, this is winning, but I probably get maybe a pint, maybe 2 pints of strawberries from, each year, And so you look at it and you say, do I want to dedicate the space in my garden for the pint or 2 of strawberries? Is that worth it for me?
Right.
Similar to the sweet peas. If I got a pint of sweet peas, you couldn't tell me anything. They're just that good for my garden where that would be satisfying enough. I don't need 20 gallons. Yeah. Right. I would eat that much, but I don't need that. It's one of those things like it's almost a novelty.
So that's where you and I are different.
You were different when it comes to that particular vegetable, or
like sweet peas in particular. Like, I'm not going to grow sweet peas for a pint. Mm-hmm, I'm not going to do it. I need more than that. It's an all or nothing type deal. Like the amount of effort to shell them, I need to make it worth my while. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, I'm not convinced how well they keep. I'm not convinced how well they freeze. Like, will the magic be gone? That's the reason why I'm okay with like I'm grabbing them and running,
Well, you buy them from the store frozen.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I buy from the store. I buy jalapenos from the store, and they taste much better than the jalapenos I ever pickle at home. I told you I'm on year 5 of that. Crap. Year 6. Well, this will be year 6.
Yeah.
I've had 5 years of crappy pickled jalapeno peppers. So there's that.
Yep. And then this is going to be another crappy year for you.
No, man, I'm not. I do things like cowboy candy. That's exactly what I want, but I mean, it's a pound of sugar.
I wish I had $1 every time I heard you say cowboy candy.
Yeah, a pound of sugar. I use jalapenos in my salsa. Wonderful. But it's not going to be year 6 as I'm not pickling them. I'm done.
Well, let me go back
Which also impacts the amount of jalapenos I grow.
Let me go back to the peppers situation too, because last year or the year before, we had I don't know what happened with the peppers. They got really crappy. The plants, I don't know if they got a disease or an insect or whatever, but it dramatically cut down on our harvest for it, where I don't think we got a handful of peppers. I think it was
Which type?
Sweet peppers. Mm-hmm. So that's why we did this year. And I told my wife, I was like, dude, I'm just going to plant a bunch of peppers. I was like, if we have some die off, fine. Like, it doesn't matter anymore. But then, you start looking into like spacing of these plants too, like appropriate spacings. And you can put a lot into, a garden bed of certain vegetables. You know what I mean? Like peppers, you can pack in pretty tight. Tomatoes, you can't, it's like I have people, and when they come and they buy seedlings from me, I'll talk to them. And a lot of people are newer, and so they don't really know exactly what's going on. And, what I tell them is I'm like, well, how big is your garden? And they'll tell me, and I'm say, okay, well, if you're buying this and you really like this, you can put in, like somebody came and bought some onion seedlings from me. I'm like, look, if you have a 4x8 bed, you can put in like over 100 onions in that 4x8 bed. And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, you can pack in some onions. Like, you can really get down to it. And it's like, people don't understand that. Like, you can really add a lot, like kale, lettuce, all these things. You can really pack them in tight and get a lot out of a small area. I don't really want to plug my YouTube channel a lot, but I did a video the other day about, how much I'd harvest. I haven't been to the grocery store to buy vegetables in 6 weeks now. And we've only been harvesting out of 2 4x8 beds, essentially. Like if you start taking all the pieces of the beds and putting them together, it ends up being 2 4x8 beds. That's a lot to be said about that. Now we have 9 beds, but they're growing at different stages and different crops and stuff like that. So, once you start doing that kind of thing, you can figure out like, I can really grow a lot of food. Just depends on what food I'm growing and how much of that I want to eat. Like we grew 1 row of kale. Dude, I don't need to grow more than 2 or 3 plants of kale.
Well, I think a great example of how you can take what you described and apply it to you is like what's the percentage of vegetables that you all eat in each meal? Ballpark.
Us? Mm-hmm. 50%.
Okay. Great number as well. 50% of the meals that you all eat contain vegetables, and in the last 6 weeks, you've gotten them all from your garden.
Right.
Right. If that's the way that my diet is, then I'm golden. You know, if I've done similar things that you have when it comes to planting. If I eat more vegetables, then maybe I should be planting in more space. Maybe I should be timing it where I'm harvesting in more space. If I eat less vegetables, I could really be winning, you know, when it comes to thinking about what I can do for my garden. I think, you look at something like, pick a summer month, you know, like June. If you could look back and say all of the vegetables, you and I have talked about eating completely from
There's only
the
9
garden.
days in summer and June. There's only 9 days of summer in June. Come on.
Oh, well, yeah. So if you look at like we've done like the August challenge, like eat everything from your garden, like eat a meal that's only from your garden. And there's something to say, because the first time I heard it was 4 weeks. Now it's 2 weeks later and 6 weeks. Like, I think that's really important. You know, like, can I look and say I'm able to eat from vegetables from my garden solely for 2 weeks even, I think is a win. If you go to the grocery store once or twice a week, either once a week or every 2 weeks, to basically say you didn't have to buy any vegetables, I think that's winning.
Yeah, I had somebody come over about a month ago, and I called her up and I was like, hey, do you want some vegetables? Yeah. Like, well, you have to come right now and come get them because I'm in the garden. So she came by, brought her daughter. I hope she's listening to this. And I don't know how the conversation come up, but her daughter said something like, why is it so serious? It's just food. And I was like, oh my God. How
old is the daughter?
She's 14.
Oh,
and her mom, and I'm good friends with both of them. Her mom was like, you just said that to the wrong person. And I was like, there has been times in your life when you had no access to food, and you're really going to sit here and ask me why I'm so serious about it? Like, come on.
You could even feed yourself. No,
yeah.
Sorry.
So I, ended up giving them a lot of greens and stuff like that, and they were very appreciative. And I mean, the thing is it's important to know, like, yeah, we haven't been in 6 weeks to the store to get produce, but we've also been eating the same thing for 6 weeks. And it does get old, but that's okay. What makes me so special that I need to get something that's totally out of season or something like, because truth be told, like, I'm no longer eating collards. I won't eat any collards again until November. I'm running out of lettuce. Like, these things are coming to an end. You know what I mean? So it's kind of, I've got a whole bed that's nothing. I've got 2 beds that are nothing but potatoes. So at that time period, we're going to be eating a lot of potatoes, hopefully, or maybe not. We might space them out and eat them over a period of time, but it'll be supplementing in. And the reason why we grew 2 beds is because we knew, 1, I wanted to save seed potatoes. 2, I wanted my son to grow them. And 3, we wanted enough to be able to not have to buy potatoes from the store. So we don't eat a lot of potatoes, but because they store well, so here's the last category, because they store well, we know that we can eat a handful of potatoes once or twice a week and have them last us a couple months going into it. You know what I mean? So that's just one less thing that we have to purchase, just like the onions. One less thing. We haven't bought garlic in a year. We won't have to buy garlic this year, so you're just chipping away at this constantly.
I kind of feel like that's the note I want to end on. That's it. That's most of us. I'm going to venture and say most of us are chipping away. Yeah. Most of us aren't, completely replacing the grocery store with what we're pulling out of our gardens, right? Most of us aren't necessarily even eating a particular vegetable only from our garden. There's some things that, like, I haven't bought, maybe if I've gone to a restaurant or something, but I haven't purchased collard greens. I can't even remember. I'm trying to remember the last time I purchased kale from the store. And it's something that I'm not eating 52 weeks out of the year.
Right.
I definitely can. If I'm going to cook it, I definitely can freeze it, but I feel like I get enough of it out of my garden. Tomatoes, I buy, and they're terrible, but I still buy them during the off season, right? Off season for me, at least. So I think that it doesn't have to be about replacing everything. So when you say how much should you be planting? How much should you be growing? Some vegetables you may want to grow the entire amount that you ever eat for that from this year to next year. And other vegetables, you just may want to enjoy them while they're growing in your garden. That's it.
Right.
That's going to dictate how much you grow, how many plants, how long you leave those plants in your garden. Because there's that. I think we generally talk about, the plant stays there until it's done producing. I know that you were like hardcore about pulling things out of your garden. We talked about that a lot a couple of years ago. And I know that you're generally still that same guy. But, you look at sometimes, like I said this year, and we'll see if I do it, my kale starts to just get overrun by aphids at some point in the summer.
Yeah. And
I kind of feel like I've done okay the last 2 years in starting them from seed. I think I'm not going to try to keep it all summer long. I'm going to basically get prepared to. A couple of years ago, I planted it in September and was able to enjoy it for the rest of the year. So maybe that 2-month period, maybe it's okay to have a break from it, as an example.
Right. Lettuce
is clearly something that forces your hand, and you end up doing that in most of our garden spaces.
Well, and I mean, lettuce is an easy one to grow too. So I think it's, most gardeners enjoy a fresh salad. So it is a damn shame that not all ingredients of your traditional salad grow in the same season, but we won't crack that nut again. That's been talked about.
One of my favorites is kind of a roasted, the fixins are roasted, like roasted broccoli, roasted carrots, maybe a little bit of sliced onion, some fresh lettuce. I generally add cucumbers and tomatoes to everything, but you may want to add some olives in there, like those kinds of things. Like I could have an enjoyable salad during the fall or maybe late spring before I get my tomatoes. Now, am I going to be eating this salad 2 or 3 times a week? Probably not. I'm probably not growing that much of those things, but just something to think about.
It would be an interesting exercise. Take, if you're serious about growing food, and if you're listening to this show, I'm going to assume that you are. But for all of us, like the first day of spring, or pick a day, within each season, and take a picture of your meal. And then in summer, take a picture of your meal, and in fall and winter, and see how it changes throughout the year of the fresh produce that's on your plate. I think that'd be interesting to see, because I've been thinking about this a lot lately as we come into, tomatoes, cucumbers, and peppers are, the main 3, at least in my garden. It's like right now, it's like just grab a salad and eat it. But in a couple months, it's not going to be that way. It's going to be, you're going to see these vegetables on there. And then in the fall, you'll start to see this. And in the winter, you'll start seeing like roots and stuff on our plates and stuff like that. And so it'd be interesting to compare those 3 different, or those, I guess, 4 times a year, what you're eating based off of what you grew. I guarantee you'll start seeing, like in the winter, you'll start seeing like squash soups and pumpkin soups and, salads in the spring, and bruschetta in the summer, and fresh watermelon and all this stuff. But it would be interesting to see the flow through the year of and I think it'd give you a pretty good snapshot of what you're doing. I mean, it has to be real. Don't make like a special dish, like this is the one I'm going to take a picture of. Like on an average day, just take a picture of it. It would be interesting to see.
I think it could be an awesome set of visuals for what one space can produce.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
I'm going to do it.
Me
I'm
too.
going to try and remember it and post it all. I guarantee I'll forget to do the summer one, but I'll do the spring one.
I'm trying to figure out how many more days I have in spring. Technically, I have about 2 months from when we're recording this.
Yeah.
In spring. Like the 20-something of June.
21st. Mm-hmm. So you have 1 month and 27 days. Mm-hmm. That's quick Rain Man math for you.
I'm proud of you, and I can't even do it quick enough to check whether or not you're accurate. I'm just
that's
going
why I
with
said
it.
that, so I just threw you off, so I
We
cannot
both
be
may
proven
be
wrong.
wrong here, but that's just the way it's gonna have to be.
Somebody listening is like, he's wrong.
But you don't know what today is, so you can't say that he's wrong. I mean, you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
We aren't recording this on the day you're listening.
Yeah, so I think on that note, I think it's a good place to remember that you got to figure out what you like to eat and what you want to do with the produce. It's like a weird conversation because it's like there's no definitive answer.
But you also have to recognize that your garden may change what you like. And just like sometimes, whether it's store-bought or otherwise, you're sitting down to a meal and you're not loving it. Sometimes it's like that from the garden too.
Dude, I feel like you're on the pulpit. You need to start pounding your fist and yelling at us.
I'm trying to tell you.
Because,
It's so clapping here.
at the end, during spring, what we've eaten, I grew a lot of bok choy.
I saw.
I grew a lot of bok choy, everybody. And I'm going to tell you, I didn't expect it to do well, and it did fabulous. So we ate a lot of bok choy. Now, I think we've added another staple into our garden, but this is one that we need to find a happy medium with. But I'm going to go ahead and tell you, if I don't see another piece of bok choy for the next 6 months, I will be a happy man. So, it is what it is, and that's something that like I wanted to grow something different. The garden provided it. And so we adapted to what we were able to eat, and it worked out well. It got a little old. It's okay. Just not a lot of recipes for it. But at the same time, it is what it is. So
Bok choy wilts like spinach, though. Like you had a whole lot of it, but what did you end up with? A teaspoon or something of it?
No, it doesn't wilt as bad as spinach. So one meal for 3 of us, and I do require a little bit more food than everybody else. We would eat 2 heads per meal. So,
you did have a lot of it then.
Yeah, and so we ate it. I think I grew 30 heads of bok choy, and there's like 2 left out there, and I'm looking at them, I'm like, I've never wanted a pest to attack something so bad in my life. Just like, take it.
Maybe I'll add it. Remind me to add it to our goals loosely next year. Bok choy is not as cold hardy as some of the other vegetables.
Right.
I really love, picking it out of my garden, bringing it inside. But by the time I get out there when it's time to grow it, it's just one of those pain in the butt crops because it's one of those that the white moth attacks. And so like, I just need like a whole tarp. Remember the show that she said you hate it, but I love all of those kind of shows, Under the Dome. Like I need some kind of dome over my entire garden. Like, only let good pollinators in, which I've actually been picking little bitty worms off of my transplants that are on my back porch that have been hardening off for like far too many weeks. So anyway, yeah.
So my new washing station I have? It's working fabulous, by the way, everybody, in case you didn't know.
It looks wonderful.
I went out there and I harvested 4 heads of cabbage the other day. Did not take pictures of them because they were ate up with some cabbage loopers. So I was thankful that I had this washing station because I was out there scrubbing the cabbage, getting all the guts off of them and stuff. I was like, yeah, these can come in looking purty, but they ain't too purty right now. But I will.
The amount of green worms that I've found in my kitchen sink as I've been cleaning some vegetables. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, all right, everybody, come check us out on Facebook. And if you're on the Facebook group, show us what you're eating. Give us a picture. This is be one of the few times I ask for people's food pictures because I hate them. But I think this is going to be an interesting one. Check us out on Patreon. We just released our first garden update of the year, or you can get it on Apple subscriptions. So we will be doing our garden updates, which are packed full of information. We're basically talking about what is going on in our gardens and troubleshooting each other's stuff, basically, throughout these episodes. So there's a lot of knowledge hidden within each garden update. Yes, ma'am.
There's laughter. There's joy. There are tears.
Yes.
There are virtual hugs. And then occasionally there's garden stuff.
Occasionally. And other than that, everybody, Just do one thing. Continue to learn to grow and grow for change.
See ya.
Now you know why people feel like celebrating at harvest time.
All over the world, people have feasting and good times when the crops have been gathered in.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for checking out the Backyard Gardens podcast.
If you like what we're doing and you want to continue to support the podcast, head over to our Patreon page to sign up.
You can also make a one-time donation using PayPal. Both of these links are in the description.
With your support, we can continue growing and helping others in their gardens. See ya.
If you guys want some Backyard Gardens gear,
go to the link below and check out our t-shirts, mugs, pint glasses, and other gear.
All purchases go towards helping to support the show, so thank you so much in advance, and we hope you enjoy. We want everybody to have a garden, and we're going to give you a chance to win free seeds every month.
Head over to backyardgardenstv.com and enter your email address to be entered in all of our giveaways.
Good luck!
We want you to be a part of our gardening community. DM us a picture of your garden at Backyard Gardens TV on Instagram, and we will share it with our listeners.